The whispers in the walls. The old house in the woods had been vacant for years, but to the Harper family, it seemed like the perfect place to start over. After the chaos of their past, they needed a fresh beginning. The air was crisp, the trees were tall, and the house itself, though aged, had a charm they couldn't resist. When they moved in, everything felt fine at first. The creak of the wooden floors, the smell of dust and old paper, the silence. These were the little things that made it feel like home. But on the third night, something happened. It started as a low murmur, just beyond the edge of their hearing. A whisper. At first, they dismissed it as the wind, but the wind didn't whisper their names. It was Lily, the youngest of the family, who heard it first. She was lying in bed when she heard a voice, soft, almost musical. Her name, Lily. She bolted upright, heart pounding. There was no one there. The house felt cold, but not from the draft. It was something else, something unseen. She shook it off as a bad dream, but the next night, it happened again. This time, the voice was clearer, more insistent. Lily, help us. The whispers were unmistakable now, and they were coming from the walls. Terrified, Lily ran to her parents' room, but they were asleep. The next morning, she tried to explain what had happened, but her parents just brushed it off. "It's just an old house, sweetie," her mother said with a nervous smile. Houses creak and groan. But Lily wasn't convinced. That night, the whispers returned, and this time they weren't just calling her name. They were speaking to her, begging her. The voices grew louder, and their tone became urgent, desperate. "Lily, please, you must listen. They're coming for you." Fear began to gnaw at her insides. She pressed her hands against the walls, hoping to silence the voices, but they only grew louder, more frantic. The walls seemed to pulse, as if they were alive, breathing. The next day, the house began to change. At first, it was subtle, small things like the light flickering in the hallway, or the sound of footsteps when no one was there. But then, it got worse. The kitchen light wouldn't turn off. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The rooms didn't feel the same. One night, as Lily wandered through the house, she found herself standing before a door she had never seen before. A dark, wooden door at the far end of the hall, behind a faded tapestry. She reached for the doorknob, but her hand recoiled as a voice shot through her mind like a needle. "No, do not open it." But Lily was drawn to it, as if the door itself was calling her. She twisted the knob, and it opened into a room that seemed out of place, a room that was never there before. The air was heavy with the smell of decay, and the walls were cracked as if something had been hidden there for decades. Lily stepped inside, but as soon as her foot crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind her, trapping her in the room. The whispers surged in volume, now more frantic, more pleading. "Help us, save us, before it's too late." Lily's heart raced. The walls seemed to close in on her, their cracks widening as if to consume her. She backed away, her breath shallow, her hands trembling as she searched for an escape. But the room was shifting, its dimensions bending in ways she couldn't understand. It was as though the house itself was alive, aware of her presence. Suddenly, the whispers stopped. The silence was deafening. Then, slowly, the walls began to change, warping and twisting, revealing images, fragments of something terrible. Faces, distorted and bloodied, emerged from the cracks. Their eyes stared at her, pleading, screaming, their mouths opening in silent agony. Lily screamed, turning to flee, but the door was gone. It was just another wall now, its surface slick with dark, oozing stains. She pressed her hands against it, desperate to find a way out, but the voices started again, louder this time. They were everywhere. The walls, the floors, the ceilings, each surface seemed to hum with their agony. "Lily, you can never leave. You're already one of us." She collapsed to her knees, horror sweeping through her as the reality set in. The house wasn't just a house. It was a tomb. It had been built on the site of a massacre years ago. The spirits of the victims, men, women, children, were trapped within its walls, their souls bound to the house for eternity. And now, Lily was part of it. She had always been part of it. Her family, oblivious to her plight, searched for her desperately, but they couldn't hear the whispers. They couldn't feel the house changing. They were blind to the truth. When they finally tried to leave, they found the door to the outside was sealed shut. No matter how hard they pushed, the door wouldn't budge. The walls were closing in, and the voices were louder now, a maddening chorus of tortured souls. Lily's father banged on the walls in a panic. "No, no, we have to get out. We can't stay here." But the whispers, like an eerie lullaby, sang their final words. "You never left. You were never meant to." The family's screams echoed through the house, but the walls absorbed them, just like they had absorbed every soul before. The Harper family was never seen again, and the house in the woods stands empty, waiting for the next souls to wander in. And the whispers continue to echo through its walls, always searching for someone to listen.